is irrefutable. Our consciousness continues beyond our physical bodies. My Life Beyond study is strictly a volunteer program.
So why can some people see ghosts?
The strong connection between Rio and his father brought them together, and the rest is, well, history in the making.
So listen, first of all, congratulations on the movie. Yeah, it's fantastic. I was speaking to Rahul the other day, and I told him the same as I'm going to tell you. It's the best film I've seen so far this year for me. It's fantastic. I love it. Everything about it. I mean, I think it just found me in the right kind of mind, the right kind of frame of mind that I needed a film like this just to kind of cheer me up and kind of take me down in the dumps and cheer me up at the same time. And then
that was the goal. That's what I wanted it to do. That's exactly. Amazing that it worked.
And I'm going to recommend a book as well that I was reading at the same time, which was just a happy coincidence. I was reading a book about a guy who, when he's a kid, he sees the ghost of his grandmother. So he realizes that there is life after death, and then he decides to become a scientist and kind of studies after death kind of things. It's called Orpheus Built a Girl. Highly recommend that. I'm sure you'll love it. It's very different to the film, but
girl, I love this.
I'm sure you'll enjoy that. It's very different, but I just happened to read it at the same time that I watched the film, and they were like
the ghosts are calling you.
I hope not.
It's okay, they're friendly.
But they just felt like companion pieces. It was fantastic. But yeah, again, congratulations on the movie. It's fantastic. And I mentioned there in the book that this guy, he sees the ghost of his grandmother. And curiously, I understand that the seed of your film was actually you, specifically a question that your grandmother asked you before she passed away, sadly, which was, do you believe in ghosts? So can you elaborate a little bit on that? I don't want to go too deep into that because I'm sure it's kind of a touchy subject for you, but I understand that was the seed, no?
Yeah, no, it's actually I had directed a few short films, and it was the last short film that I made was my film with my grandma, Do You Believe in Ghosts? So she had Alzheimer's, and it was towards the end, and I had been going and visiting her and recording all of our conversations just with audio. And I really wanted to capture the moment of what it felt like to sit with her. And so I finally went in and I captured this video of her. And it was amazing because it was also one of the last conversations that she was able to have before she, dementia is kind of this thing, you think it's a slope, but it's not. It kind of goes down in these abrupt ways. And so she actually lost the ability to have conversation a couple days later. And so I look back at that film and it just means the world to me. Also, I recorded for 2 hours, so I have all that footage that I get to watch, which I'm so grateful for, and that I made time for and did that day. That was just such a special day. But I guess the macabre and darkness and all those things have been a part of my life for so long. And I think one of the things is not being afraid of it, but longing for it. After my grandma died and I left, it didn't make sense to me that she wasn't there. And she had always said, if I'm a ghost, I'll come back and haunt you. And all I could think about after she died was, please. That's all I would like. I was just wanted it so badly for her to come back and say hello. And so that whole idea of being haunted, which I was, because I was haunted by her death, but also the desire to see her again. And I just wanted to redefine the idea of a ghost. And so that's very much the opening of the film is a moment in which you're scared because it's still scary to experience those things, but then you get to look at it from another perspective, and it's the thing that actually can make you happy, and the thing that I genuinely have been longing for. And she hasn't visited yet, but I'm still very open to it.
Well, I think she has in a roundabout way, because this screenplay, from what I've read, served as kind of a catharsis for you to help you in your times of darkness. So in a roundabout way, your grandmother is helping you through times of darkness, no? If you look at it that way, no?
I love that. You know what? And she is all around all the time. When you have those people in your life, they never really go away. I think about her all the time. There'll be a moment I'm like, she would love that. And so, there are these ghosts that you kind of carry around. And I do think the ghosts are attached to the living because it's us who can't let go of them. I don't think that they're sticking around because of us or because of their needs. I think it's to take care of us.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And going back to this, I mean, the screenplay, obviously it must have served as some kind of catharsis of the grief you suffered with your grandmother, but also I read that it was kind of going through a lot of your own fears of what was going on in your life, politically speaking, COVID, even artistically speaking, everything, no? So I'm quite curious about.
It's scary.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm curious about how that served as help for you, and also, how did you feel about kind of putting that down on the page and knowing that hopefully eventually, and you are getting to do this now, is to be able to share that intimacy with the world?
It's terrifying. It's still terrifying. Every single time I go to a screening, they always ask me to do an intro, and I'm always like, oh no, it's about to happen again. They're gonna go through it again. I'm gonna put myself out there again. And it's been a wonderful experience. And I believe art is tapping into that place of complete and total vulnerability and finding a way of portraying it. And this is an emotionally driven character piece. You can put it into any genre you want. It fits into so many different pockets because emotions don't fit into a pocket. They are not one thing. When you are going through grief and when you are dealing with severe trauma, it goes like this, and it's not always dark. Sometimes you're crying, but sometimes you're laughing. Sometimes it's really fun. Sometimes it's silly. Sometimes it's drunken. There's all these different experiences. And so I wanted it to feel like an emotion feels. It's I don't know if you've had this, but it's, I remember me and my sister dealing with an issue with our lives, and it was very tragic. And then we just burst out laughing. Like I wanted to find those moments of light and hope while still being earnest to the darkness as well. And that was really my goal. And it's something that you just never know if it's going to fully work until others view it. And I wish I could say that I'm just an artist who just makes art for myself. I don't. It is very important to me that I make something that I feel like can maybe help in all the chaos and all the shit in the world. Maybe it helps like that much, just like the tiniest little bit. So it is important to me, and I do care about it resonating with people. And I do really hope that some of the themes in the movie can maybe help people out, maybe a little bit. Anybody who's felt some of the conversations that we have and the issues that we talk about in the film.
Definitely. I mean, you mentioned that you're able to laugh about some of these really dark, stark things now. But I mean, that's obviously with people that you know and you've known for years, you can kind of share and laugh about those kind of things. But people that you don't know, that must be really kind of intimidating to create comedy out of this thing that it kind of deals with suicide and grief and these kind of things. That must have been you must have really second guessed yourself when you were writing that kind of comedy to kind of bring, I mean, it really does work and it brings so much levity to the whole kind of themes, but that must have been really daunting to kind of come up with just the right kind of keen way of how to make things funny for people that you don't even know, you've never met in your life.
Yeah, I was never trying to like make it funny necessarily. That is just kind of my way of going about it. That is very much just my voice and I think I never really second guessed anything. I will say I just expressed myself. I did take certain, the conversation, especially the conversation about suicide, very seriously, and made sure that I always went back and I said, what am I saying? How am I saying it? Will this be triggering? If somebody is having these types of thoughts, is this something that could aggravate them, and how to best deal with that? So I actually asked many different people, and one of the things that I love is feedback. So one of the things that I did do is I didn't necessarily second guess myself while I was writing. I felt pretty strongly while I was writing it, but I think it's very important to have as little ego as possible in receiving notes back and in hearing how people are interpreting it, because it's one thing for me to say something, but it's another thing for people to hear it. And so that was always a very important part of the process for me.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously once the two lead actors came on board, who are absolutely out of this world as well, they're fantastic. It's so authentic, it's just so palpable. Rahul was telling me that he was able to kind of add some improv in there to kind of add a bit of levity, add more authenticity to it. How much was that scripted, and how much did you allow them to kind of bring to the table before they actually went in front of the camera, kind of brainstorming with you beforehand?
Rahul was shooting Midnight Mass until a couple weeks before we went on the road for this. So I think we had like 2 or 3 Zooms, and we had only one Zoom with Rahul and Katie together, in which it was probably an hour and a half, and they completely had different styles of working. There was, Katie, who was so meticulous, so well thought out. She was also having to dive into a character that wasn't like her at all in a lot of ways. Okay. And was going to have to be a chameleon. And Rahul really wanted the freedom of this role. That was what really attracted him, and to be able to move and shift. And so you had this like very strict and very movable people. And what I just want to do is put them in a car as soon as possible, not rehearse anything, not do anything, and throw them at one another and yell action. Give them opposing direction and watch the fireworks take off. And I think we also shot it almost entirely in order. So they are a little bit stiffer with each other when they first get in the car, and then you see them start to warm up with each other, and then they take off. And I loved being able to lean into that a little bit. And I mean, Rahul both improv'd a lot, but also was so respectful to the dialogue that I wrote. And any time where it was he was going to change something, he always asked me ahead of time. He was like, hey, I have some ideas, or hey, can I do this? Always did it exactly as on the page, and then would be like, can I do this? And the answer was almost always yes, especially in the lighter moments. You know, there's a moment when they're driving in the car and they start to kind of share their stories of what they've done, and they get a little bit jokey. And I remember we did the lines, and then I was just, keep going, keep going. And I was actually in the trunk of the car, and I was dying laughing. I mean, I didn't get to use all of what they were ripping on. I wish I could, because it was so hysterical, just the two of them going back and forth. So yeah, there's moments where I wanted them to be free. They're supposed to be free. They're supposed to be opening up. So you just find those moments and you just lean into it, and you trust your actors know their characters very well, and you get magical moments like that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, something that really kind of struck me as well was the fact that Rahul is originally from the UK now, and I believe that I mean, I don't know if you agree, but I feel that our sense of humor, we can laugh at really dark things and kind of laugh at ourselves in a way that is kind of very peculiar to the UK now. Was that something that he brought into the mix as well?
That was kind of there.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I love dark humor. Maybe I lived in the UK for a while, so maybe that's where it comes from for me. Maybe I like that about the UK, and that sense of humor. So most of that was there. You know, a couple of my favorite ones were when he was changing the tire with Father Jack, and he says, Jesus fucking Christ. That's an ad lib from Rahul. Yeah. My favorite one is when he later in the film, when he meets Nick and he's standing there very awkwardly with him, and he goes, hi, I'm Nick, and he goes, okay. That was a Rahul moment. You know, he was supposed to just ignore him and walk away, and he said that, and I remember we had done the take twice and I was about to move on. He goes, let me do one more, and I was like, okay. And we did that, and I just, again, was just dying laughing. It's the little moments, but it's because both of them started to, especially at that point, that was almost towards the end, know their characters so well that when something would pop up, it was very genuine. It wasn't like they were just trying to throw things in. It was because they knew their characters and how they would respond in that moment. And I love that, because it feels more like I'm capturing these characters than I am creating them.
Mm-hmm. And then something else I wanted to ask you. I mean, we talked about one of your family members, your grandmother, that was very much responsible for the film eventually. I'm guessing that your father as well played a big part in maybe helping you. I know that he worked on some of the music for the film, no, but I imagine he's someone that you go to for maybe a lot of pearls of wisdom. Yeah. I mean, obviously he writes the music, but I imagine because this is kind of his mindset is very similar, and he's worked with some of the best in the business. So do you kind of go to him for tips and advice, or
no?
Exactly the opposite?
No, you know, I don't. My relationship with my dad is probably a very non-film one, to be honest. We're very into cooking breakfasts, smoothies. Those are a lot of our conversations, family stuff that's going on, always family drama. Those are most of our conversations. And honestly, I mean, I tried to avoid getting into Hollywood. My first job was, I was a horseback riding trainer, and my student was a line producer, and that's how I got in. I think he never wanted me to be an actor, so I was an actor for a while. I've always pushed against him. You know, for a long time, I didn't even want to use my last name because I was so worried about
nepotism, really?
Yeah, and falling under this whole shadow of Danny Elfman. I don't care about it anymore. I think that's also because now I've done a lot more things, and I kind of figured out my own voice. He's also, his style of artwork, which I think is brilliant, and I think he's a true artist who keeps challenging himself and inspiring me as an artist, honestly, with the artwork that he does. But my voice is very different, and I think I had to figure that out for myself, and I had to really find that. And I'm, you know, he is kind of likes to be out there and big percussion, you know, when he's singing on stage, he's got the big arms and everything else. That's not me at all. And I went a very different route. And I think this film, when he first saw it, I think he was shocked by it, because I think it was really me, as me being the most me. And I think it was, I think the first time that he had seen that, and I think he didn't know who that was. And I think it was probably pretty interesting for him to see something from his daughter that he didn't know that she had in her or was making. I think a little bit the grandma short, I remember he saw that a while ago. It was very funny though, because he said, you know, we were writing something for a family thing, and he said, have your cousin help. And I was like, why? And he goes, he's funny. And I'm like, I'm funny. And he's like, you're earnest. And so when I did this, and I was like, am I still earnest, or am I also funny? He's like, okay, you're both. Like, thank you.
But listen, so just I'll let you go with this one. So obviously, I've told you I've loved this film to bits. I can't wait for something else. Please tell me you've got something in the works that you're hopefully be able to get out soon.
Yeah, I actually just finished producing another one called Birth Rebirth. So that'll come out next year. But directing is all I want to do. I am working very hard on that. It's also, I'm writing one for myself, but unfortunately I don't write very fast. So I'll get there. And there's hopefully going to be one more on the way to that. That I'm trying to get funded and cast right now. So, you know, cross your fingers for me, because it's a crazy world out there.
Brilliant. When I've got fingers, toes crossed, everything crossed, and I hope to speak to you again sometime soon about one of those projects. And I can't wait for people to see this film, because it's fantastic. I loved it.
It means so much to me. Thank you so much, Howard. Thank you for
That's
the
great.
time.
Thank you so much for your time. Hope to speak to you again soon. Take care. All the best, Molly. Bye then.
I want my life to mean something. I don't want to hate life. I want to embrace what's next.
You practice that? You got like an Instagram handle for the afterlife? What you do here still matters. You know that every time you disappear, another little piece of my heart breaks. Lost everyone.
So? I never even had anyone.
But I did. I can't make it stop.
You can stop! I need you!
I see it. This darkness. It's your sister.